appreciate very much the opportunity to talk about what I believe and what Oprah Winfrey believes. By the way, who joins us here today, my co-author in this new book. What our nation and our world needs more of today. Now, I teach, as you heard, at the Harvard Business School, and we've learned that. I mean, the icebreaker at any party is, what do you do? And I say, I teach at HBS, and people say, what, accounting? Finance, marketing, supply chain management, something practical like that. I say, no, I teach happiness. And they think I'm lying. It doesn't sound like a real topic of study, certainly not at a business school. But in point of fact, that is what I teach. I teach a science class on happiness. Why? Because the business that is most important in each one of your lives is the business of your life. You, Inc. You are the startup that matters the most. And until you understand the currency of love and happiness, which is how you can get to your own personal, greatest explosive experience in your own life, if you don't live up to that, well, then you're not really doing the business that matters the most. So this class is, relatively popular. I have 2 sections of 90 students. I have 400 on the waiting list. There's even an illegal Zoom link they think I don't know about. But for a year or so, I was thinking, I wonder if I could share this more widely, outside the classroom, outside of Harvard University. I was looking for an answer on how to do that. Well, the answer came from Oprah Winfrey. She said, why don't we figure out a way to get these ideas in front of millions of people who don't happen to be at this university? And we cooked up a scheme to do just that. The first shot in this collaboration is the book that Zeitgeist has so graciously given a copy of to all of you that just came out last month. What a wonderful thing that is. And we're looking for new ways to share these ideas more and more widely. Why? Because the problems of unhappiness and polarization that we're all experiencing in our world today, they have a solution. And the solution is for each person to realize that they can live a better life. They can be happier. And to inform them, to put some information in their hands on where their journey should start. I want to take my 20 minutes to give you some ideas about that journey that you can use as well. It won't all be new, but you might need some reminding of some of these ideas as well. I can't go through the whole book, don't worry, but we will start the conversation here. Now, on the first day of class, when my students are in the seats, they've competed to get these elective slots. It's a market at the Harvard Business School, as you'd imagine, for classes. And I say, look, you must know what happiness is or you wouldn't be sitting here. So what is it? And I cold call them. That's what we do at Harvard. We cold call them. They don't like it. I'm not going to do that to you. What's happiness? And one by one, they always say the same thing. Happiness is the feeling that I get when I'm with the people that I love. Or happiness is how I feel when I'm doing what I enjoy. And I say, wrong. Happiness is not a feeling. Feelings are evidence of happiness. To say that happiness is a feeling is to say, for example, that the smell of the turkey is your Thanksgiving dinner. They're not the same thing. That's good news, by the way. If happiness were nothing more than an evanescent feeling, you'd be subject to it. It would depend on how you slept last night or what you ate for breakfast or if your spouse yelled at you this morning. It's no good to live that way, hoping that a feeling will visit itself upon you. No. Happiness is something a lot more tangible than that. And so we start the class with a definition. And when we understand the definition of happiness, we have the journey laid out before us. There's science, there's practices, there's sharing, but it takes work. So let's start the work with the definition. Happiness is really a combination of 3 things. Just as your Thanksgiving dinner is a combination of 3 macronutrients, carbohydrates, proteins, and fat, which is not a very romantic way to see Thanksgiving dinner, but it certainly is scientifically accurate, happiness is a combination of 3 macronutrients: enjoyment, satisfaction, and meaning. You want to be happier in your life? You need balance and abundance of enjoyment with your life, satisfaction with your accomplishments, and finding the meaning, the why of you. None of those things is straightforward. All of us can get better at these things. all of you have a particular weakness along one of these dimensions. So let's talk about each one, and I'd like you to reflect on your own life. This is what Oprah and I ask you to do in our book. Reflect on these dimensions in your life and think about strategies on how you can get better. And I'll give you some tips. And let's start with enjoyment. Now, what is enjoyment? Everybody knows. Pleasure. Wrong. Pleasure and enjoyment are radically different things. And a big problem you can have in your life is pursuing pleasure as a goal. Pleasure as a primary life goal leads to addiction and misery. How that differs from enjoyment requires a tiny bit of brain science. The brain has three basic functions. It's called the triune brain. Now, this is an antiquated theory, but it's relatively an accurate way to understand more or less how the brain works. In the first set of functions, we perceive outside stimuli. I see light, I see people, I can feel the air temperature, I can walk across the stage without falling down, I can breathe without thinking about it. The second set of functions takes outside stimuli and turns them into feelings, into emotions, into cravings, into drives. That's called the limbic system of the brain. That's in the very center of the brain. It was evolved over a 40 million year period. It's an amazing feat of evolution. Now today, one of the biggest mistakes that people make when they're thinking about emotions is that they're good or bad. There are no good emotions and there are no bad emotions. Emotions are simply information. They're translating what's going on in the outside world into a machine language that can inform the most modern part of your brain and help you decide how to react to it, to stay alive, to pass on your genes, to fulfill your goals, to go to work, whatever you're deciding to do. The limbic system gives you your positive and negative emotions, which are neither good or bad. A lot of my students, they're in pursuit of good emotions and they're aversive to bad emotions. This is a terrible way to go through life. In point of fact, you need negative emotions. Anger, fear, sadness, disgust, they keep you alive. Without fear, you'd be dead in a week. You should be grateful for your negative emotions, which make it possible for you to live another day. You should stop thinking that you want to get rid of your negative emotions. No. You need to manage them, learn from them, grow from them, which is what I want to talk about right now. So these emotions are produced according to the outside environment, and they're delivered in their experience to the neocortex of the brain, the wrinkly outside structure of your brain. The reason that your brain is wrinkly, by the way, it's a 1 square meter sheet of brain tissue scrunched up into your tiny cranium. And the most modern part is called the prefrontal cortex, a bumper of tissue right behind your forehead. It's an extraordinary thing. It's the supercomputer of your brain that makes you, the conscious you. But it's relying on information the whole time that's being delivered by the limbic system. Back to enjoyment and pleasure. Pleasure is limbic. Pleasure is a signal that says, that feels good. It must be something that either keeps you alive or helps you pass on your genes. See, this is Mother Nature's two goals for you: survival and gene propagation. You know what one of Mother Nature's goals isn't? Happiness. Mother Nature doesn't care if you're happy. That's up to you. That's the divine path. The animal path, survival and gene propagation, and pleasure is one of the things that says you're going to get more of those things if you eat that, if you look at that, if you date that person, whatever it happens to be. Now, here's the problem. You all know that looking for sources of pleasure, hitting the pleasure lever again and again and again, never leads to something good. Nobody's ever said these words: my source of happiness, methamphetamine. Never. Because that's the source of misery and addiction. Here's how you turn pleasure into enjoyment, which is the source of happiness. You take pleasure, a source of pleasure, and you add, you don't have to take it away, add two things: people and memories. Why? Because then the experience of that pleasure is fully utilized, experienced in the prefrontal cortex of your brain. It becomes a human thing as opposed to just an animal thing. You don't need to stop doing something. You need to add things to the experience, people around you, memories. By the way, if you look at an Anheuser-Busch commercial, they never advertise beer with a guy alone in his apartment pounding a 12-pack, right? Why? Because and by the way, lots of people use the product that way. They don't do that because that's the pursuit of pleasure and that's dangerous. That's irresponsible. That's no way to live. What do they show? Same guy clinking a beer bottle with his friends or with his family. He has taken the source of pleasure and added people and added memories. The rule of thumb is this. If there's something you really, really like, don't do it compulsively by yourself. Do it with others and make a memory. If you're doing it alone, you're probably doing it wrong. That's enjoyment. And that's a true source of happiness. And that's one. Two is satisfaction. During the coronavirus epidemic, when we were just super deeply locked down in Massachusetts, my little girl, who's now 20, she was a senior in high school. And she was studying by Zoom, graduating from Newton South High School in the outskirts of Boston on the laptop at the kitchen table, miserably, like everybody else, learning nothing, like almost everybody else. Well, every morning I would come down and she would be in math class, just miserably looking at the laptop. One morning I come down, she's looking at the laptop, laughing. What are you looking at, honey? Obviously she's not in math class. What are you looking at? And she says, I'm actually looking at YouTube. I said, okay, good. I'm watching a video of a very old man dancing like a chicken and trying to sing. I'm not beyond looking at somebody making a fool of himself on YouTube. I like that too. I'm a shallow person fundamentally. So I come around and look at what my little girl Marina is looking at on her laptop of the old man dancing like a chicken and trying to sing. It's Mick Jagger, right? She doesn't know who he is, right? Kids these days. He's singing, I can't get no satisfaction. Recently, so he's like 100, right? And she says, do you people like this? By which she meant old people. I took umbrage at that. But it gave me an opportunity to explain something to my little girl, which is that, it's not that fun living with a social scientist, but I got an opportunity to talk to her about the fact that it's not the song, it's just the song. The reason that it has been so popular, it was number one on the charts when I was 1, and I'm 59. It's been around for a long time. The reason for its popularity is the message. I can't get no satisfaction, and I try, and I try. What is satisfaction? It's the reward after struggle. That's what satisfaction is. It's the joy, the moment of ebullience that you get after you work hard for something. If my students cheat on an exam to get an A, there's no satisfaction. If they work hard and get an A, it's wonderful, right? But here's the problem, right? It's actually not true you can't get no satisfaction. Jagger's wrong about that. The problem is you can't keep no satisfaction. If you couldn't get it, you wouldn't try and try and try and try. The problem is you can't keep no satisfaction. I've done research in my academic career on the joy that people get when they find out they're getting a bonus at work. It's not the day it shows up in their check. It's the day they find out about it. That's the day when the boss comes in and says, you're a linchpin in this company. 40% bonus, whatever. And you go home and you open the champagne with your spouse. It's so great. And 3 weeks later, it shows up in your check, and you're like, huh, yeah. And you're running for the next thing because you can't keep no satisfaction. There's a reason for that. There's a process in every biological and emotional process in human life called homeostasis. Most of you have heard that word before. Homeostasis means the tendency to return to an equilibrium, return to a baseline, a physical or emotional baseline. Why? Because you always have to be ready for the next thing in life. Mother Nature gives you homeostasis so that you're ready to deal with the next thing emotionally or physically. But Mother Nature also makes sure that you don't know you're going to return. She fools you. She tells you you can keep satisfaction if you get that car or that house or that job or that marriage or that watch or that prestige or power or whatever your thing is. You get it, you're going to love it forever. But then you get it and then you don't. And so you conclude, I guess I needed more. That's the hedonic treadmill. It's a metaphor, obviously. You run to get the feeling, and then you don't get the feeling for very long, so you keep running and running. And if you're a real striver, I'm talking to you, achievers, There's a little evil guy in the corner of the gym who's turning up the speed on that treadmill. And so after a little while, it's going at terrifying velocity such that you're not just running to try to get ahead anymore, you're also running because you're afraid to stop. That sound familiar? That's the striver's curse. And it's a real tyranny. Now, satisfaction, to be sure, is a macronutrient of happiness. You need that joy for these achievements. The problem is the tyranny of the hedonic treadmill. But there's a glitch in that matrix that you can exploit. There's a way that you can fix that. To do that, you're going to have to stand up to Mother Nature. And I'm going to tell you how to do it. It's not easy, but you can. Here's how it works. Mother Nature gives you a formula for satisfaction. Satisfaction is equal to all the things that you have. It's the sum value of all the things that you have is your satisfaction. That's what Mother Nature tells you. She's lying. The real formula for lasting satisfaction is all of your haves divided by your wants. That's a better formulation of the right strategy for lasting satisfaction. Haves divided by wants. Now, you can get momentary, inefficient satisfaction by having a have-more strategy. How do I get satisfaction? More what? More everything. More power, more money, more pleasure, more fame, more Instagram followers, more whatever your thing is. Or you can look at a better strategy that lasts by decreasing the denominator. You don't need to have more strategy. You need a want less strategy. Do you? Do you have a strategy for wanting less? Think about it this way. First part of your life, you're building the beautiful artwork that is you. Your life is an empty canvas, which you're filling up with brush strokes. The problem is if you're an achiever, you're a striver, you're a hard worker, and you're blessed with some success. What privilege. By about age 45, that canvas is as dense as a Rothko, right? More brushstrokes are not going to make it better. What do you need? You need to change the metaphor from a canvas you're filling up to a sculpture that you're chipping away. And the beautiful you is in there, and there's detritus you need to get rid of. You need to get out the chisel. On your birthday, you don't need a bucket list. You need a reverse bucket list. And you write all of your ambitions and desires and your cravings, and then you cross them out. Not that you won't get it, not that it's not good, but it's no longer limbic. In your prefrontal cortex, you can manage those desires. That's what I do now, by the way. I practice what I preach. On my 59th birthday, some months back, I put the list of my cravings and desires, right? And some of them were predictable, that Oprah and I would have a big bestseller. I know I'm 59, I shouldn't be thinking about that, but we're human, right? But you know what else I put on there? A bunch of my political opinions. Because they were holding me down, man. They were attachments. Thich Nhat Hanh, the great Vietnamese Buddhist master, one time said that opinions are our greatest sources of attachments. So I wrote down half of my strongest political opinions, and I crossed them out. Want to know why I need fewer political opinions? Because I need more friends. Yeah. And I'm free. I'm telling you, I'm lighter. I'm free. And that can work for you too. Do you have a wants management strategy? It's question number 2. And that wraps up the whole idea of satisfaction as macronutrient number 2. But that leaves us one more, which is meaning, and this is the hard one. Meaning is the hard one because this is the journey that we're really all on. I can go a pretty long period of time. I'm pretty disciplined without enjoyment. And I can defer my gratification such that satisfaction, it may be elusive for a while. It's okay. But I can't go one day without meaning. I can't go one day without the answer to the why question about my life. And this is what brought me and Oprah together in the first place, is the why. Is the why part of happiness, the meaning part of happiness. You know, this is arguably the biggest crisis that we see with young people today, people in their 20s today. I've got kids, and all 3 of my kids are in their 20s now. And this is the problem. Who am I? What am I all about? What do I believe? And they don't even know where to start to answer this question. It's too big a question to begin with. What's the meaning of life? Like sit at the mouth of a cave and ask the guru? I don't know. Philosophers and psychologists actually are pretty good at breaking it into sub-questions. The sub-elements of meaning are coherence, purpose, and significance. Coherence is, why do things happen the way they do? You need an answer to that. Purpose is, what's the direction of my life and what are my goals? The significance is, would it matter if I weren't here? Would it matter? Now, here's how I sum it up for my kids and my students. I give them a 2-question exam. I'm going to give it to you now. You don't have to have particular answers. You just have to have answers that are not PC things that you tell your mom and sound good. Real answers to 2 questions. Here's the good news. If you don't have answers to these questions, now you know what to go looking for. Because once you know what to look for, you can find it. Here are the 2 questions, the meaning questions. Number 1, why are you alive? You have an answer? Number 2, it's going to get harder. For what are you willing to die today? If you don't know, that's a problem. Good news, now you know what to go looking for, the answers to those questions. And when you do, your life will change. I've seen it. I've seen it with countless students. I've seen it with my own children. My kids are 25, 23, and 20. You met my daughter Marina a minute ago. Now meet my son Carlos, who's 23, my middle child, my problem child. You know, when he was in high school, it was just, every day. I had a frequent flyer program into the principal's office. It was the worst. And it was always the same thing. Carlos is getting a D in math. Carlos is flunking history. Carlos is not going to graduate on time. It was always grades and not living up to his potential. And finally, my wife, who's from Barcelona, she's an optimist, she says, at least we know he's not cheating, you know? It was the worst. And here's the ironic part. He wasn't even having fun. He wasn't even having a good time. He didn't know what his life was about. Okay, so by the time he got to his junior year, I did the same thing I do with all my kids, which is that they have to write a business plan, right? Look, I'm a business school professor, so, and they're entrepreneurs in the business of their lives, and I'm a venture capitalist for them, right? And if I'm going to invest, I deserve a business plan. It's not fun being my son, but they all did that. Carlos's business plan went through 6 rounds of revisions because it wasn't original. Comes in, it's like, I'm going to go to college. No, you're not. You're not going to college. Don't lie to me. And if you did, it would be a disaster. How do I know? Because I'm Carlos. I'm Carlos too. I made it through 10 months of college. 10 months at Cal Arts, right up the road here, California Institute of the Arts, right? And then I was invited to pursue my excellence elsewhere, right? Dropped out, kicked out, splitting hairs. Anyway. And so I went on the road for 10 years as a musician. I made my living, most of it in the Barcelona Symphony as a French horn player. As a matter of fact, I spent 2 years on the road with a jazz guitar player named Charlie Bird. I was doing great. And by the end of my 20s, then I was ready for college. And I went to college by correspondence and graduated a month before my 30th birthday. Okay? That was my path. And that's Carlos's path. And I could see it plain as day. So I said, give me a business plan, son, that tells me where you're going to go to find the answers to your 2 meaning questions. And he did. Here's where his plan started. He went out to become a dryland wheat farmer in Idaho. We are not a farming family, right? He picked rocks out of the soil. He mended fences in the winter. He cut down dead trees. He drove a combine 16 hours a day during harvest, made a bunch of money, 2 seasons. Then, part 2, he joined the Marines. Basic training is no walk in the park for the U.S. Marine Corps. Even harder is your training for the Infantry Training Battalion. And after that, he joined a branch of the special operations called the Scout Sniper Platoon. My son Carlos is 23 years old. Corporal Carlos Brooks, U.S. Marine Corps, Scout Sniper Platoon. He's married. He's got it going on at 23. This is very unusual for 23-year-olds these days. Here's the most important thing. The boy's got answers. I've asked him, Carlos, why are you alive? Because God made me to serve. Carlos, for what are you willing to die today? For my faith, for my family, for my fellow Marines, and for the United States of America. And our allies, don't worry. Boom. These are not your answers, potentially. These are not my answers, necessarily. But he's got answers. And this is how we find the happiness that we seek, is we figure out what we're looking for, and then we have the confidence and the entrepreneurial spirit to go looking for it. So here's where I'm going to leave things, because my 20 minutes is up. This is what Oprah and I, in this book and our work together, no matter where it takes us, what we invite you to ask. We invite you to ask, are you in the pleasure business or the enjoyment business? Do you need to tune that up? Second, do you have a haves management strategy, or do you know how to want less? How are you going to do that? And last but not least, what are your answers to the questions? Do you have answers? Why are you alive? What are you willing to die? Those are questions truly worth pondering for each one of us. When? How? I don't know. Maybe for a couple of days away from our ordinary lives with some close friends in one of the most beautiful places in the world. We offer that to you with our love. Thank you.